The call that shattered my world came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, right as I was finishing up a client meeting at Morris and Associates. I'm Caitlin, a corporate lawyer who spent the last decade building a reputation for integrity, only to discover my own family had been secretly destroying it. Ms. Pierce? Frank's voice wavered slightly. This is Frank Santos from First National. There seems to be an irregularity with your sister's mortgage payments. I frowned, shuffling papers on my desk. My sister's mortgage? I think you have the wrong person. No, that's actually why I'm calling. You're listed as a co-signer on Gwendolyn Pierce's mortgage for the property at 1542 Maple Avenue. The pen I'd been holding clattered to the desk. That's impossible. I never signed anything. Our records show otherwise. The paperwork was processed 6 months ago. Your parents brought in all the documentation. My parents? The room started spinning as pieces clicked into place. Their nervous behavior at Christmas, the way they changed the subject when I mentioned Gwen's new house, their insistence that I sign some routine paperwork during Mom's birthday dinner. I need to see these documents immediately, I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. Of course, I can email them now, but... Frank hesitated. There's more. The payments are 3 months behind. I gripped the edge of my desk. How much? Just over $12,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. I thanked Frank mechanically and ended the call, then immediately dialed Griffin's number. He'd been my best friend since law school, and right now I needed both a friend and a lawyer. Hey, stranger, he answered cheerfully. My family forged my signature. The words tumbled out. They put me on Gwen's mortgage without telling me. Jesus Christ. Griffin's tone shifted instantly to professional mode. Don't do anything yet. I'm coming to your office. 20 minutes later, Griffin was examining the documents Frank had emailed while I paced behind him. Look at this. He pointed to a signature. They didn't even try hard to match your handwriting. I leaned in, stomach churning. The signature was clearly my mother's attempt at copying mine. The K had her distinctive curl. My phone buzzed. Mom's smiling face appeared on the screen. I showed it to Griffin. Answer it, he mouthed. Stay calm. I took a deep breath and hit accept. Hi, Mom. Sweetie, are you free for dinner tonight? Your father's making his famous lasagna. The casual tone made my blood boil. Actually, funny you should call. I just had an interesting chat with Frank Santos. Silence, then. Oh, honey, we were going to tell you. Tell me what? That you forged my signature? That you made me legally responsible for Gwen's house without my knowledge? It's not like that. Mom's voice rose defensively. Gwen needed help, and you're doing so well. The bank wouldn't approve her loan otherwise. So you committed fraud? My voice cracked. Do you have any idea what this could do to my career? Don't be dramatic, Caitlin. We're family. Families help each other. Help each other? Or help Gwen? The words tasted bitter. I'm coming over tonight. Have Gwen there too. We're going to fix this. Honey, I hung up, hands shaking. Griffin was already pulling up more documents on his laptop. There's definitely grounds for legal action, he said quietly. But are you sure you want to go that route? I sank into my chair, suddenly exhausted. I don't know what I want except answers. Then let's get them. Griffin started making notes. But first we need to protect you. I'm seeing red flags all over these documents. What do you mean? He turned the screen toward me. These mortgage papers? They're just the tip of the iceberg. There's language here suggesting other accounts, other obligations. We need to find out exactly what they've tied you to. I stared at the documents, my parents' betrayal spreading like poison through every happy memory I had of them. All those family dinners, all those proud smiles when I made partner, were they just grooming me to be their unwitting financial safety net? Griffin? My voice was barely a whisper. Help me burn it all down. He reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. We'll do better than that. We'll make sure they face every consequence they've earned, starting with dinner tonight. I nodded, rage and determination crystallizing into something cold and clear. They wanted to use my success against me? Fine. They were about to learn exactly how successful I could be at fighting back. Griffin's office looked like a crime scene by midnight, with documents spread across every surface and yellow sticky notes, creating a web of connections on his whiteboard. We'd skipped the family dinner. My phone had blown up with texts from Mom, Dad, and Gwen, but I'd ignored them all. This was more important. Look at this, Griffin said, holding up a credit card statement. A platinum card opened in your name 3 months ago. The address is your parents' house. I grabbed the paper, scanning the charges. I never applied for this card. And these purchases? Designer bags, spa treatments, restaurant bills. This is all Gwen's spending pattern. They're getting sloppy, Griffin muttered, typing furiously on his laptop. The card was open with an online application. Want to bet they used your social security number? A knock at the door made us both jump. It was Solstice from the firm's financial crimes division, carrying 3 cups of coffee. Thought you could use reinforcements? She said, handing them out. Griffin filled me in. This is seriously messed up, Caitlin. I took a grateful sip. Can you help us trace anything else they might have opened in my name? Already on it. Solstice pulled up a chair. I've got access to databases that'll show us every account linked to your SSN, but you should probably sit down for this. My stomach dropped. How bad? 3 credit cards, 2 personal loans, and she paused. There's something weird with your investment accounts. Griffin leaned forward. Weird how? Someone's been using them as collateral for other loans. The paperwork looks legitimate at first glance, but the timestamps don't add up. These documents were backdated. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Gwen. Please pick up. Mom's crying and Dad's furious. We need to talk about this as a family. I showed the message to Griffin. Reply, he advised. But don't give anything away. We need to know how deep this goes before confronting them. I typed, still at work. We'll talk tomorrow. Solstice whistled softly, staring at her screen. Caitlin, when was the last time you checked your credit score? 6 months ago? It was over 800. It's 642 now. The room spun slightly. Everything I'd worked for, my financial reputation, my carefully built credit history, all of it damaged because my family decided to use me as their personal ATM. There's something else, Griffin said slowly, examining a document. These loan applications, they're not just using your current income. They're listing future projections based on your career track. They're banking on your next promotion. How would they even know about that? I demanded. Because Dad's golf buddy is on the firm's board, I realized, the pieces clicking together. He must have mentioned the partnership track discussions. Solstice started organizing papers into piles. Okay, here's what we know. They've created roughly $300,000 in debt under your name. The mortgage is the biggest piece, but these other accounts suggest they're building a safety net. My guess? Gwen's house of cards is about to collapse, and they're preparing for it. By sacrificing me instead, I said bitterly. Griffin grabbed a fresh legal pad. We need to document everything tonight. Tomorrow we'll start a damage control. First step is freezing your credit and filing fraud alerts. Then we dispute every account they open without authorization. But the mortgage? I hesitated. If we do that, Gwen could lose her house. That's not your problem, Solstice said firmly. They made their choices. Now they get to face the consequences. My phone lit up with another text from Mom. We did this for your sister. You've always been the strong one. Please understand. The strong one. That's what they'd always called me, their reliable daughter who could handle anything. Now I understood. It wasn't a compliment. It was their justification for taking advantage of me. I need to know one thing, I said, looking at Griffin. Can we prove they forged my signature beyond any doubt? He nodded grimly. The timestamps alone prove you couldn't have signed these documents. You were in court during half these application dates. Plus, we can get handwriting analysis done. Good. I stood up, suddenly energized by anger, because tomorrow I'm not just freezing my credit. I'm going to make sure they never do this to anyone else again. Solstice raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to talk to Frank Santos again. If they forged documents at his bank, he needs to know. And once he files his report. I smiled without humor. Well, fraud investigations tend to uncover all sorts of interesting things. Griffin started gathering the documents. You sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. I looked at the text messages from my family, each one assuming I would cave, that I would understand, that I would sacrifice myself to protect them, just like I always had. I'm sure, I said. It's time they learned what the strong one is really capable of. The smell of Dad's lasagna filled the house as I walked in without knocking. My parents and Gwen sat at the dining room table, a perfect family portrait except for their tense expressions. The manila envelope in my hand felt heavy with proof of their betrayal. Finally, Mom said, trying to sound normal, we saved you a plate. I dropped the envelope on the table, cutting her off. Let's skip the pretense. Here's everything I found last night. Want to explain or should I start? Dad reached for the envelope, but I snatched it back. No, you've done enough handling my paperwork. Don't take that tone with us, he snapped. We're your parents. Parents don't commit identity theft against their children. Gwen burst into tears. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The house was a good investment. I just needed help with the down payment. The house? I laughed harshly. This goes way beyond the house, Gwen. 3 credit cards, personal loans, using my investment accounts as collateral. Mom's face went pale. How did you? I'm a lawyer, Mom. Did you forget that when you were forging my signature? Or did you just count on me being too much of a pushover to fight back? We did it because we love you both, Dad said, his voice rising. Your sister needed help and you had the means to help her? I finished. Funny how you never asked if I wanted to. I'll pay everything back, Gwen sobbed. I promise. I just need time. Time? I pulled out her credit card statements. You spent $12,000 at Nordstrom last month, another $8,000 at that spa in Vegas. How exactly are you planning to pay this back? The silence was deafening. That's what I thought. I turned to my parents. And you too. Using Dad's connection at my firm to get insider information about my career prospects? That's a new low. Mom stood up suddenly. You don't understand what it's like, watching one daughter succeed while the other struggles. We had to balance things out. Balance things out, my voice cracked, by destroying my credit, by risking my career, my law license. Don't be dramatic, Dad started, but I cut him off. Dramatic? Let me tell you what's dramatic. Tomorrow morning I'm meeting with Frank Santos. I'm filing fraud reports on every account you opened in my name. Then I'm contacting the police. Gwen's sobs turned to hiccups. You wouldn't? Try me. Please. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away. We can figure this out as a family. Your sister's house is not my problem. I turned to Gwen. You have 3 months of missed mortgage payments. How are you planning to fix that? She looked down at the table. Mom and Dad said they'd help. With what money? I demanded. The credit cards in my name are maxed out. The loans are behind on payments. Where exactly is this help coming from? More silence. That's what I thought. I pulled out one final document. This is a formal statement denying any knowledge of or consent to these accounts. I'm filing it with every credit bureau and bank involved. You'll ruin us, Dad said quietly. The words hit like a slap. No, you ruined yourselves, and you tried to ruin me in the process. I'm scared, Gwen whispered. I can't lose my house. I don't know how to fix this. For a moment, looking at my little sister's tear-stained face, I wavered. Then I remembered the methodical way they'd stolen my identity, planned their deception, used my success against me. You should be scared. Actions have consequences. Welcome to yours. Mom started crying then, big theatrical sobs that used to make me cave instantly. We're family. How can you do this to your family? Family? I gathered my documents. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't commit fraud. Family doesn't sacrifice one child to enable another's spending addiction. Caitlin, please. Gwen reached for me. I'll do anything. Just don't report this. We can work something out. I looked at them. My sobbing mother, my angry father, my desperate sister. The family that had shaped me, raised me, and then betrayed me without hesitation. You have 24 hours, I said finally. Either you come clean to Frank yourselves or I do it for you. Either way, this ends tomorrow. I walked out, ignoring their calls behind me. In my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Griffin. How did it go? I typed back. They're still trying to manipulate me, but tomorrow they learn what happens when the strong one finally stands up for herself. Starting the engine, I caught a glimpse of them through the dining room window, huddled together, probably already planning their next move. But this time I was 10 steps ahead, and I wasn't backing down. Solstice's office looked like a war room when I arrived the next morning. Multiple screens displayed financial records, and a printer hummed continuously, spitting out more evidence. You're not going to believe this, she said, spinning her monitor toward me. Your sister's spending isn't random. There's a pattern. I leaned in, scanning the transactions. What do you mean? Look at the timing. Every major purchase coincides with your parents' social events. Country club dinners, charity galas, board member meetings. She was keeping up appearances, I realized, making sure everyone thought the family was doing well. Exactly, but here's where it gets interesting. Solstice pulled up another screen. I found a shadow account. Your parents have been moving money around, trying to cover the tracks. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. We're meeting with Frank this afternoon. Please reconsider your position. They're trying to get ahead of me. I showed Solstice the message, but they don't know what we found. Speaking of finding things, she hesitated. There's something else. Your sister's been applying for jobs using your credentials. What? She handed me a stack of papers. Found these in the background check databases. She's been submitting resumes with your law degree and bar admission, just changing the name. The room spun slightly. That's not just fraud. That could get her arrested. It gets worse, Griffin said from the doorway. I hadn't even heard him come in. Just got off the phone with a headhunter friend. Gwen interviewed for 3 positions using your credentials. One company was about to make her an offer. I sank into a chair. Did she actually think she could pull that off? People would figure it out eventually, Solstice said, but by then she'd have a foot in the door and a salary history to leverage. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Frank. Your parents are here. They're telling a very different story. Please come to the bank immediately. Of course they are, I muttered. They're trying to spin this before I can present evidence. Griffin grabbed his briefcase. Let's go. I've got everything we need to prove the forgeries. Wait, Solstice called up one more document. Take this too. It's proof that your parents accessed your investment accounts without authorization. The IP address is traced back to their home computer. The drive to the bank felt surreal. Through the lobby windows, I could see my parents sitting in Frank's office, Mom dabbing at her eyes with a tissue while Dad gestured emphatically. Ready? Griffin asked quietly. I straightened my spine. More than ready. Frank's office fell silent as we walked in. Mom's eyes widened at the sight of Griffin. This is a family matter, Dad started to say. No, I cut him off. This is a criminal matter. Frank, I have proof that my parents and sister committed multiple counts of fraud using my identity. Now wait just a minute. Dad stood up. Sit down, Griffin said firmly. Unless you prefer to have this conversation at the police station. Frank looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Your parents say they had your verbal permission. They didn't. I started laying out documents. Here are the forged signatures. Here are the unauthorized account access logs. And here, I placed Gwen's fake resumes on top, is evidence of my sister committing employment fraud using my credentials. Mom burst into fresh tears. We were desperate. Gwen needed... I don't care what Gwen needed, I snapped. You committed crimes, multiple crimes, and now you have a choice. Frank picked up the forgery evidence, his face growing darker as he read. This is very serious. We know, Griffin said. That's why we're giving you a chance to handle this internally first. But if you don't, our next stop is the district attorney's office. Dad's face had gone from red to pale. You would send your own sister to jail? You would steal your daughter's identity, I countered. Forge her signature? Use her career to prop up your lies? Frank cleared his throat. I'll need to report this to our fraud department and freeze all associated accounts immediately. That's not necessary, Mom began. Yes, it is, I said firmly. And here's what's going to happen next. You're going to admit to everything. You're going to close every fraudulent account, and you're going to face whatever consequences the bank decides on. Or, Dad challenged, or I press criminal charges. Your choice. The silence stretched thick and heavy. Finally, Frank spoke. I need to make some calls. Please wait here. As he left the office, I looked at my parents, really looked at them. They seemed smaller somehow, their self-righteous anger crumbling into fear. You did this, Mom whispered. You destroyed our family. No, I stood up, gathering my evidence. You did that all by yourselves. I'm just making sure you can't destroy anyone else. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Solstice. Found more. When you're done there, you need to see this. I showed Griffin the message. He nodded grimly. The day wasn't over yet, and something told me the worst was still to come. Back at the office, Solstice was pacing, her usual calm demeanor shattered. She thrust a stack of papers at me the moment I walked in. Look at this. She pointed to a series of transactions. Your parents' shadow account? It's not just about covering Gwen's spending. They've been running a small-scale Ponzi scheme through the country club. Griffin grabbed the documents. What kind of scheme? They've been investing other members' money, promising returns from some exclusive fund, but the money's just being shuffled around to pay earlier investors and fund Gwen's lifestyle. My legs went weak. How much? Nearly $2 million. Solstice pulled up a spreadsheet. And guess whose investment accounts they use as proof of their success? Mine. The word tasted like ash. They showed people my portfolio to convince them to invest. Exactly. Your success made their scam believable. My phone rang. Frank again. I put it on speaker. Caitlin, we've got a problem. Your parents left the bank and immediately tried to withdraw large sums from multiple accounts. Were they successful? No, we froze everything in time. But, he hesitated, they're claiming you're trying to extort them. They're threatening to report you to the Bar Association. I laughed bitterly. Let them try. Frank, I need to tell you something else. They've been running an investment scam. A commotion outside interrupted me. Through the glass walls, I saw my father storming through the office, Mom and Gwen trailing behind him. We need security, Solstice said, reaching for her phone. No, I stood up. Let them come. Dad burst in, his face purple with rage. You think you can destroy us? We'll take you down with us. Really? I held up the Ponzi scheme evidence. Want to explain this to everyone first? The color drained from his face. Behind him, Mom gasped. Where did you get that? Does it matter? What matters is that you didn't just steal from me. You stole from everyone who trusted you. Gwen pushed forward. It wasn't stealing. Dad was helping people invest. In what? I demanded. There is no investment fund. Just you living beyond your means while they use my success to lure in more victims. We can fix this, Mom pleaded. If you just give us time. Time for what? To find more victims? To forge more documents? To steal more identities? You ungrateful. Dad started forward, but Griffin stepped between us. Think carefully about your next move, he warned. The police are already on their way. You called the police? Gwen's voice rose hysterically. No, Solstice said from her desk. The bank did. Standard procedure for attempted withdrawal after a fraud alert. As if on cue, 2 officers appeared in the doorway. Is there a problem here? Dad deflated visibly. Mom started crying again. But Gwen looked at me with pure hatred. You really want to do this? She hissed. Fine, but I'm not going down alone. I'll tell them everything. How you knew about the investments. How you helped set up the accounts. Except I didn't, I cut her off. And we both know it. But please, keep talking. The officers would love to hear about your employment fraud, too. The police moved into the room, taking statements. I watched as my family's facade crumbled completely. Mom's tears turned real. Dad's bluster gave way to defeat. And Gwen, my little sister, who I'd protected all our lives, sat in stony silence as the officers explained the charges. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your parents owe me $200,000. They said you'd guarantee the investment. We need to talk. Then another. They promised returns from your hedge fund connections. And another. My retirement money. They said you were managing it. The messages kept coming. More victims, more lies, more lives destroyed by my family's deception. Griffin touched my arm. You okay? No, I said honestly, but I will be, because this ends today. I turned to the officers. I want to press charges, all of them, and I have evidence of additional financial crimes you need to see. You can't, Mom wailed. We're your family. I looked at them, really looked at them. My mother who taught me about integrity while helping forge my signature. My father who bragged about my success while using it to deceive others. My sister who took everything I earned and still wanted more. No, I said quietly, family doesn't do this. Family doesn't steal and lie and destroy lives. You're not my family anymore. You're just criminals who happen to share my DNA. The officers began leading them out. Gwen turned back at the door. I hope you're happy, she spat. You've ruined everything. I watched them go, feeling oddly peaceful. No, I whispered. I just stopped you from ruining anyone else. Solstice was already pulling up more records. There's going to be fallout from this. More victims will come forward. I know. I sat down at her desk. So let's find them first. Every last one. The day wasn't over, but for the first time since this started, I felt truly strong. Not their version of strong, the kind that enabled their crimes, but my own strength built on truth and justice, and I was just getting started. The victim statements kept coming in over the next week. Griffin and I had taken over the firm's conference room, walls now covered with photos and connecting lines like a crime show investigation board. Each new revelation felt like another punch to the gut. 14 victims so far, Griffin said, adding another photo. Most of them elderly members of the country club. Your parents really knew how to pick their targets. A knock at the door made us both look up. It was Frank, looking exhausted. You need to see this, he said, placing a USB drive on the table. We found hidden accounts, offshore ones. My heart sank. How much? Close to $3 million. They've been moving money to the Cayman Islands for months. Griffin whistled softly. That's not amateur hour anymore. That's serious financial crime. There's more. Frank hesitated. Some of the transfers, they were made from your office computer, late at night. I frowned. That's impossible. I never... The cleaning crew, Solstice said from the doorway. Remember how Gwen used to visit you at work, always staying late, saying she wanted to spend time with you? The pieces clicked together. She was using my computer after I left, with login credentials that matched yours perfectly, Solstice confirmed. She must have installed a keylogger during one of her visits. My phone buzzed, a call from the county jail. I ignored it, like I'd ignored the dozen others this week. The FBI wants to talk to you, Frank said quietly. This crossed state lines. It's federal now. Good. I stood up, stretching. Because I found something else they'll want to see. I pulled out a file I'd been saving. Inside were photos from my parents' social media, specifically their recent vacations. Look at the dates, I pointed. Every major withdrawal from the victims' accounts corresponds with a luxury trip. Here's Mom on a yacht in Greece, Dad golfing in Dubai, Gwen shopping in Paris. All funded with stolen money, Griffin realized, and posted online for everyone to see. They weren't even trying to hide it. Another knock. This time it was an elderly woman I recognized from the country club, Margaret, one of my mother's closest friends. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said softly, but I needed to tell you something. I gestured for her to sit. She pulled out an old photo, my high school graduation. In it, my parents beamed proudly while Gwen sulked in the background. Your mother told me something that day, Margaret said. She said she'd always have to work harder for Gwen because you were so naturally gifted, that you'd be fine on your own, but Gwen needed extra help. My throat tightened. She told you that 15 years ago? Yes, and now I realize they've been planning this for years, positioning you as the successful one, the strong one, so they could use your reputation to help Gwen. The revelation hit like a physical blow. My entire adult life, my career, my success, my reputation had been cultivated by them not with pride but with calculation. Mrs. Anderson called me this morning, Frank added. She lost her husband's life insurance money to your parents' scheme. She's going to lose her house. No, she won't, I said firmly, because we're going to find every penny they stole, starting with those offshore accounts. Griffin was already making calls. I know someone at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. We can expedite this. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Mom. The lawyers say we could face 20 years. Please, sweetheart, help us one last time. I showed it to Griffin. They're still trying to manipulate you, he said gently, still trying to use your strength against you. I know. I turned to Margaret. How many other victims haven't come forward yet? She looked down. Many. They're ashamed, embarrassed. Your parents were so respected in the community. Then we'll help them too, I decided. All of them. Every last person they deceived. Solstice's computer pinged. Got something. A series of transfers to an account in Singapore, recent too, made right after your confrontation at the bank. They were planning their escape, Griffin realized. If we hadn't stopped them, they would have disappeared with everyone's money, I finished, leaving me to deal with the fallout. Another text from Mom. We're family. Families protect each other. I finally replied, yes, they do. That's why I'm protecting everyone else from you. Then I turned to the others. Let's get to work. We've got money to trace, victims to find, and justice to serve. Margaret touched my hand. You truly are the strong one, dear, just not in the way they intended. Looking at the evidence wall, the faces of people whose trust had been betrayed, whose lives had been upended, I felt that strength surge through me. Not the strength to enable crimes, but the strength to stop them. No, I said quietly, I'm just doing what they never had the strength to do. The right thing. The federal courthouse loomed before me as I clutched the final dossier. Every transaction, every victim, every lie meticulously documented. 2 FBI agents flanked me as we walked in, their presence both reassuring and surreal. You ready for this? Agent Torres asked quietly. I've been ready for weeks. The courtroom doors opened to reveal my family sitting with their lawyers. Mom's designer outfit had been replaced by modest business wear. Dad's golf tan had faded in Gwen. Gwen looked like a stranger in her plain black suit. The prosecution calls Caitlin Pierce, the DA announced. Walking to the witness stand, I felt their eyes burning into me. Mom mouthed, please, as I passed. I kept my gaze forward. Ms. Pierce, please tell the court about when you first discovered the financial irregularities involving your family. I took a deep breath. It started with a call from my bank about my sister's mortgage. For the next hour, I laid out everything, the forged signatures, the stolen identity, the Ponzi scheme, the offshore accounts. With each revelation, I watched their facades crumble further. And these luxury purchases? The DA held up photos from their social media, all made with victim funds. Yes, while elderly victims lost their life savings, my sister was posting Instagram stories from 5-star hotels in Paris. Gwen's lawyer stood up. Objection. Prejudicial. Overruled, the judge said. Continue. The total amount stolen exceeds $5 million, I stated. They used my reputation, my credentials, and my identity to lure victims into their scheme. And the victims? The DA prompted. 28 confirmed so far, mostly elderly members of the country club, people who trusted my parents, who trusted our family name. Dad's lawyer tried next. Isn't it true that you benefited from your family's financial success? No, I said firmly. I earned everything I have. They stole everything they had. But surely you knew. What I knew, I cut in, was that my parents raised me to believe in integrity while secretly planning to use my success for their fraud. What I knew was that my sister cried about needing help while spending stolen money on luxury goods. What I knew was that they destroyed lives while hiding behind my reputation. The courtroom fell silent. Your Honor, I continued, pulling out one final document. I have here a list of every victim, every dollar stolen, and every false investment promise made. I'm also providing evidence of additional offshore accounts we've uncovered. Mom started crying, not her usual theatrical sobs, but real, broken tears. Ms. Pierce, the judge leaned forward. You understand that this testimony will likely send your family to prison? Yes, Your Honor, and they understand that their actions sent innocent people into poverty. Gwen suddenly stood up. This isn't fair. You had everything. The perfect career, the perfect life. What about me? Order! The judge banged his gavel. What about Mrs. Anderson? I shot back. She's losing her house because of you. What about Mr. Roberts? He can't afford his wife's medical care anymore. What about— Enough, Dad shouted. We did it for you to make sure you'd always take care of your sister." The judge banged his gavel again. "One more outburst and I'll clear the court." But I wasn't finished. "You did it for yourselves. You did it because it was easier to steal than work, easier to lie than earn, easier to destroy lives than build them." The DA stood up. "Your Honor, we'd like to enter these new documents into evidence." As the bailiff collected the files, I finally looked directly at my family. Mom had collapsed against Dad, her makeup streaked with tears. Dad stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched. And Gwen looked at me with such hatred it almost took my breath away. "I hope you're happy," she hissed as I walked past. I stopped. "No, I'm not happy. I'm devastated, but I'm also done protecting people who prey on others." Outside the courtroom, Griffin waited with Solstice and Frank. "How did it go?" Griffin asked. "They'll be lucky to get minimum sentences," I said. "The offshore accounts sealed it." Frank nodded grimly. "The bank's already started the restitution process for the victims." "And the FBI found 2 more accounts this morning," Solstice added, "in Switzerland." My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "We can still fix this, please, for family." I deleted it without responding. Family wasn't about enabling crimes or protecting criminals. It was about doing what's right, even when it hurts. "The sentencing is next week," I said quietly. "Then it's really over." Griffin squeezed my shoulder. "No, then justice finally begins." Walking out of the courthouse, I felt lighter somehow. The truth hadn't just set me free, it had given me the strength to set others free too, from lies, from manipulation, from fraud. And that was worth more than any family loyalty. The sentencing hearing was standing room only. Every victim had come to witness justice being served. Mrs. Anderson sat beside me, clutching my hand as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. "Before I announce the sentences," the judge began, "would any of the defendants like to make a final statement?" Mom stood first, trembling. "We made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we did it out of love." "No." I surprised myself by standing. "Your Honor, may I speak?" The judge nodded. "Love doesn't steal retirement funds from elderly neighbors. Love doesn't forge signatures or commit identity theft. Love doesn't destroy lives while posting luxury vacation photos. What they did wasn't love, it was greed, pure and simple." Dad jumped up. "How dare you—" "Mr. Pierce, sit down," the judge ordered. "Based on the severity of these crimes, the systematic nature of the fraud, and the devastating impact on the victims, I hereby sentence Gordon Pierce to 18 years in federal prison, Angela Pierce to 15 years, Gwendolyn Pierce to 12 years. The room erupted in murmurs. Gwen collapsed in tears. Mom reached for Dad but was stopped by a bailiff. "Additionally," the judge continued, "all assets will be seized and liquidated to repay the victims. The offshore accounts will be frozen and repatriated." Mrs. Anderson squeezed my hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "I can keep my house now." As they led my family away, Gwen turned to me one last time. "I'll never forgive you for this." "I know," I said quietly, "but the victims will never forgive you either." Outside the courthouse, Griffin handed me an envelope. "The firm made a decision. They want you to head the new victim restitution program." I opened it to find an official letter. "Using my experience to help other fraud victims?" "You're uniquely qualified," Solstice said, joining us. "Who better to help people rebuild after betrayal?" My phone buzzed. A message from Frank. "First victim repayments going out today. You did good, Caitlin." Margaret approached with several other country club members. "We're having dinner tonight to celebrate justice and new beginnings. Will you join us?" Looking at their faces, no longer victims but survivors, I felt something shift inside me. I'd be honored. "There's something else," Griffin said. remember that advice forum where you used to post about family drama?" I nodded. During the darkest days of discovering my family's betrayal, I'd found solace sharing my story online. Your posts went viral. People are calling you the fraud fighter. There's a support group forming for victims of family financial abuse. They want you to speak at their first meeting, Solstice added. Share your story. Help others find their strength. The courthouse doors opened again. As my family was led to separate transport vehicles, I watched them for the last time. Not as my parents and sister, but as criminals facing consequences. "Ready to go?" Griffin asked softly. "Almost." I turned to the gathered victims. Anyone who needs help rebuilding their credit, sorting out legal issues, or just needs someone to talk to. Here's my card. My door's always open. Mrs. Anderson hugged me. "You turned something terrible into something helpful. That's real strength." At dinner that night, surrounded by people who'd been hurt but were healing, I finally felt at peace. My phone lay silent. No more manipulative texts, no more guilt trips, no more lies. "A toast," Margaret raised her glass, "to truth, justice, and the courage to fight for both." "And to family," I added, looking around the table. "The kind we choose, not the kind that chooses to hurt us." Later that night, I sat in my office looking at the victim restitution files. Each one represented someone who needed help rebuilding their life after betrayal, just like I had. Griffin knocked on my door. "First support group meeting is tomorrow. Sure you're ready?" I picked up a photo from my desk, the last family picture taken before everything unraveled. In it, we looked perfect, happy. But now I could see the calculation behind their smiles, the greed behind their poses. I turned the photo face down. I'm ready, because this isn't just about justice anymore. It's about prevention, about helping others spot the red flags I missed, about turning victims into survivors. "That's my strong one," he smiled. "No," I corrected him. "That's my choice. Being strong isn't about enabling bad behavior or protecting criminals. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it breaks your heart." I looked at the files again, at all the people waiting for help, for hope, for healing. So let's get to work. There are more stories to hear, more battles to fight, and more lives to rebuild. Because sometimes the happiest endings don't come from saving your family. They come from saving everyone else from them.